Hi. I'm doing a super random live on June 19th. Thanks for being here. I know it takes a minute for Hi. Oh my goodness, where's the There it is. Hi. Hi, Tina, Katie. Okay. It's always funny on my end. Hi, Peg. Hello from Iceland. Hi. Oh my goodness. I love seeing your names because I recognize so many of you. Hi, Shannon. Okay, this is a super random live that I'm doing. Completely last minute, but I had energy for it. And I wanted to share a few things with you that are happening right now in the world. And I know I don't talk about that on my podcast or in the other videos, so I thought that the lives would be a good place to discuss some of these developments that are happening. Okay, so hope you're all doing well. Thank you for jumping on here. Oh, it's so good to see you. Okay, so let's see. We're at the end of Gemini season. It was a little crazy. It was a little busy. Oh my gosh, wasn't it busy? It was almost too much. So I went and visited some friends in Colorado. We had some fun during Gemini season. Went to the hot springs. And then last weekend, a friend and I went and saw Esther Hicks live. She channels Abraham, right? Have you ever seen her? I'm curious if you guys have ever seen her. Hi from Australia. Hi from Good morning from New Zealand. So I've never seen Esther Hicks live, and she's so fantastic. Oh my goodness. It was such an honor to see her in her element. She's such a pioneer. All the books she's written and the fact she's been doing this for years, right? Oh my goodness. So we had a great time. And if you've never been to an Esther Hicks workshop, this was a workshop, so it was just an afternoon. It was like 4 hours or so. She starts with the channeling, and then she brings people on stage to sit in the chair, and she listens to their question and then channels the answer. And it was just so good to be in that room with all these people and all the energy. And I just loved it. And you've seen her live? Some of you have seen her live? Okay. Esther Hicks. Yeah, I enjoyed her. I enjoyed the messages that she brought in. Yeah. So that was cool. So what I wanted to touch on were some of the big business announcements that happened in the past 24 hours. Because this directly relates to what the outer planets are bringing in here in 2025. And so maybe this is you. Maybe this is something you're going through right now with a career change. Maybe it's happening in your workplace, in your company, in your world, with a loved one, friends, whatever. It's going to be a big deal here in 2025. And so these announcements that just came in the past 24 hours are really important. So Amazon announced it's going to be laying off thousands in its workforce due to AI. Amazon employs over 1.5 million people. And they're saying that we're cutting back on our staff for AI. And in this announcement, it was said that HR required every employee to read this announcement. That's a big deal. Then earlier today, Microsoft announced it's also laying off thousands of people. And so here you have two very big employers planning to reduce their workforces because of AI. And so you have to think like a CEO, you have to think like a business strategist, that if they're making these announcements now, they've already ran the numbers. They already know what the decisions are going to be. And so they already have a plan, and they're probably backtracking it, right? They're like, if we're going to announce this many layoffs in September, then we need to announce it now. And we need to let people know, and they need to follow a certain protocol, legal steps, whatever. Maybe there are no legal steps to follow, but they're basically giving people a heads up that your job is going to be ending or phased out. And the writing's on the wall here. Writing is on the wall that this is what's happening. And if you have Amazon and Microsoft making these announcements within 24 hours of each other, what's to come? What's the next company or big employer? And yet this is what is changing our world in a very big way. So when I think about how these announcements are happening, we have to think big picture, right? Big picture. So big picture also meaning bigger questions. Okay, bigger questions around what is unfolding, and to have those big picture questions in our awareness around where this could go and what is also showing up that's changing in our cultural values. Now, if you think back, there's been different phases of business development that have affected a lot of people. I mean, there was a time when, manufacturing all went to China. There was a lot of human resources outsourced to India for customer service, right? There was the time when, like at the turn of the century, when the best jobs to get were anything in technology, anything for an internet company, anything with, being a software engineer, IT, any kind of tech role. Those were all the high paying jobs. Now, there is a big change here, that those are all the jobs that are vulnerable. Those are the jobs that we're seeing whether or not they're valued. And we're understanding too that there's a lot going on behind the scenes that can replace those positions that used to have a lot of value and used to be the ones that you wanted. You wanted to get a job, started 6 figures, and you were golden, you were set. Now, Amazon, Microsoft, these companies are announcing layoffs. Who's next? Apple? Like we can guess that there's going to be even more, because they're all using these advanced technologies. They're all bringing in AI that are replacing jobs. There was also another statement that was made by the CEO of Lowe's, and this is interesting. He basically said, we're not hiring for office positions. We're hiring for people who work directly with customers. So that means if we're just going to do some like broad strokes and big guesses here, that means that the jobs that we would typically want, especially if you went to college, you got a degree, you're just starting out, entry-level jobs, there's fewer of those available. There's more of the lower paying jobs. And the CEO said, we're seeing that there's more demand for skilled trade, skilled workers, plumber, electrician, roofer, gardener. There's more need for those positions that can't be automated or replaced by AI. This is a big deal. This is a big deal because think about like why you would go to college. You would go to college to get a degree, to get a job that you're then qualified for to take you down your career path. But what if those jobs are now being phased out? Those jobs are no longer in demand, or they're not being openly or readily hired. So there's a lot of shifts happening here as we move into these new technologies, as AI becomes more integrated and more standard. And there's warnings, right? There's been lots of warnings from those who have been in this industry about where this can go and the quantum growth and how detrimental it is to the job market and how it affects people and it affects families and it affects our lifestyle. So we're right here. It's happening. And you've probably heard your own stories and you've seen things happening in your own neighborhoods, cities, towns. But there's things going on right now that are showing us how these incoming energies that we talk about, right? We talk about the astrology, how these are the energies that are changing our world. And now we're seeing it play out with these big companies. So we're seeing that there's going to be big layoffs. Now, these companies have said, and I'm not quoting it exactly, but basically that there's changes happening over the next few years. But that can mean a lot of things. That doesn't mean that they're not going, it doesn't mean that they're going to hold off on firing people. I would say that if they're making these announcements now, they already have a plan in place of when they're going to be laying people off, and it's probably sooner rather than later. And what this brings up is that people who had a certain trajectory for their career, that's being shut down. Because if the job you have at Amazon, you can't get anywhere else because that is being replaced by AI, like across the board. I'm making some generalizations here, that if you had a certain software engineer position, then you have that skill set. That's your knowledge base. That's what you're good at. But then you can't find that position in another company because they're not hiring for that software engineer. We're going to have a lot of people looking for a new purpose, looking for a new role, a new area of themselves that can be professionally developed, new skill sets that need to be developed. We're going to have people searching for, what do I do next? What's my purpose now? Because the career path I thought I was going to have long term is being shut down. And this is definitely the Pluto in Aquarius. It's also Uranus moving into Gemini, which happens July 7th. So just a few weeks away. This is the accelerated changes that are affecting people at an everyday level, and they're going to happen quickly. And so I know that all of this can sound, it's stressful, it's scary, it shakes the foundation of people's lives to lose a job. I mean, you build your life on your income. You know, for a while it was you would find a place to live that was a third of your salary, right? It shakes the foundation and brings up a lot of uncertainty, worry, all of that. But here's a bigger picture understanding is that this can be a redirect for people back to the new chapter they're ready to start, the new beginnings that they're ready to move into that they never considered before. And so we're going to have a lot of people who have previously been in these positions searching for their next thing. And it's interesting because a beautiful development that can happen is that they return to something that they really love or want to do, but didn't think would be valued or didn't think they could make an income from it. This can also bring a lot of downsizing. And it is going to have ripple effects. I mean, when you have major layoffs, it affects communities, right? It has an effect on how people live and what's going on in their local spaces. So I do want to offer some positive potentials here, but I just want to also be a realist that these changes are happening rapidly. And I feel like the best and highest good is that people are going to be redirected into something that actually brings them more joy, actually brings them more of what they want and more of what they're here to do. So this is a trend that's going to be unfolding. And we're going to see some interesting developments happening here. We're going to have some people or some CEOs and some leaders who hold out. And then we're going to have others who can't, or they answer to the board of directors, the shareholders, they answer to others. And so they have to make these changes. But what we're looking at here, the bigger picture, is that one of the best things we can do is invest in what people need at a personal level. Okay, so personal connections, personal assistance. Again, what cannot be automated, where there's fewer robots or there's fewer threat of AI or any other intrusions affecting what humans are here to do. I mean, the bigger picture is like, well, what's the purpose of our life, our energy, our skills, our abilities? What's the bigger purpose if it's not what we thought it was going to be, right? This path that we thought we had to be on, the corporate path, if you will, the traditional path, that is changing. And so people can be opening up to other ways of spending their time, using their skills, living their life. And I don't know about you, but something I've heard from a lot of healers, a lot of you who are now entrepreneurs, is that you've been on that trajectory and you found another passion, something else you wanted to build. You became an entrepreneur, a solopreneur. You did something in your local community that is valuable and needed. So now you are going to be some role models for people who are at this huge crossroads, this huge life change. Like, they're going to be looking to you for the choices you made and why and how. People are going to be searching. They're going to be searching. They're going to be stressed and potentially just needing more guidance. So I feel like that's one of the best things we can offer each other right now is like, well, what can I do to help people who are being thrown out or tossed off of a traditional path and support them in knowing like there is another answer here. There is another path and another option and opportunity that's probably not what you expect. And of course, you could recommend that they get an astrology reading to see what is going on in their chart, or what they're here to contribute, or what is important for them to understand. Because one of the bigger trends at this time is that it is actually an era of greater sovereignty. And that means that we are meant to move away from environments and places that have actually prohibited the development of the individual. And not everyone's ready for that. Not everyone wants that. There's security, perceived security, right? In a company, in a business, and in having, of course, gainful employment, and in feeling like, okay, this is where I go every day. But it is going to be changing. It's going to be changing on a really big scale. And those of you, again, you're entrepreneurs, or you've been doing things on your own, others are going to be looking for that information and guidance. And there's going to be more of a demand to figure out, what am I good at? What can I do next? What do I want? What do I want to do next? So we're going to see more of that this year. And there is already that conversation going on that skilled tradespeople and skilled labor will be in demand. And there will be more who are needing to be qualified, right? They need to get the skill set, the apprenticeship, the training for certain skills. And there will be demand for some things. And that, I think there's something about that could be really fantastic in terms of respect, because skilled tradespeople, like a journeyman, or someone who is really good at repairing things and has an understanding of how things work and how to repair, well, anything, right? Your vehicle. In fact, I remember at a dealership a few years ago, a woman was saying she was the leader of the service department, and she was saying that she can't hire mechanics. There aren't enough qualified mechanics. That's why it takes 10 days to make an appointment or to get on the schedule, because she doesn't have enough mechanics who are qualified to fix the vehicles. So things like that we can overlook or take for granted. These occupations that were not glamorized, but they're so necessary. I mean, if your air conditioning breaks down, you want someone coming through, within hours, within 24 hours. That's a skilled repair person you want access to. So there's going to be an increase in those kinds of roles. But it brings up some bigger questions. So getting back to what I was saying earlier about having a big picture perspective, if you look at how AI is changing the value of information, the accessibility of information, and that it's so easy to get more information faster than ever. And of course, AI has its problems, right? And there's things that do not work well, and there are kinks, and there are inaccuracies, and there are things that are not 100%. But as it improves over the next few years, it brings up some bigger questions around, well, what is the value of a business degree, of a law degree, of a certain finance degree? What's the value on that if I can get information really quickly through an AI? That's already happening. It's already happening. And then you think about the bigger picture of, as I mentioned, with universities, education, a college degree, like what's it worth? I don't know. I'm asking because I think these are the bigger questions we need to be considering. And Uranus and Gemini, Gemini is education. It's how information is shared. It's the availability of information, thoughts, ideas, concepts. And so we're moving into this whole new territory that we've been talking about astrologically, but now it's clearer because it's really easy to hear these concepts and be like, okay, sure, it's going to be a big year, huge changes, world changes. All of that can sound so out there. But when the rubber hits the road and we're seeing how the changes are unfolding, it's really important to pay attention, but to keep thinking of where this could go. And so higher education, personally, I value it, it's important, but I want to ask the tough questions because I'm thinking about by the year 2030, is a college degree going to take 4 years to earn? The concept of time is changing. So if you were to, 4 years is a long time, and in 4 years, a lot changes. A lot changes in 4 years. So how is the education system going to be adapting and changing to this influx of information that's readily accessible and at this point pretty freely accessible? What occupations do we value? And of course, which occupations and which people do we trust? Because trust is crucial. So these are some of the bigger picture developments that we do need to be aware of. And just know that there's going to be changes in all these areas. And it's going to be affecting, yes, many industries, many companies, many businesses. It's going to be affecting education, what we expect and need from education. I mean, this has been a question for a while. Like, is it worth it to go to a 4-year university? And at least in the US, you then typically have a lot of debt. And then how long does it take you to pay off that debt with a certain high paying job? I mean, it's like looking at all of these calculations that are involved. So these are some of the systems that are going to be really affected here, especially the next 5 to 8 years. That would be the timeline, 5 to 8 years. Because astrologically, with Uranus in Gemini, starting in July, trining Pluto in Aquarius, this is the information taking off, speeding up, the quantum development that radically changes our experiences. So there's a lot here that is really going to be developing quickly. I feel like there will be pushback. There will be pushback. But it won't be in all the ways or all the places. It'll be bringing up a lot of these moral and ethical issues about what we value. How much are we valuing human intelligence? Because human intelligence is the universities and colleges and the workplace and our skills. we're going to have a lot going on here. And I feel like, again, it's starting here. It's starting and it's already coming in. But I think there's going to be even more announcements from companies. And so there's going to be other possibilities. There's going to be other options. And I feel too like this is where we go higher in understanding the soul's journey and what each soul is here to experience in this lifetime. And to understand that, you know, if we set it up at a soul level to have these big changes and to have these big shifts, then that means we also set it up for the new answers and the new developments. And that we set it up to be moved into the new opportunities that we wouldn't have connected with otherwise. And so that is one overarching view. And of course, that's something that, you know, every person decides if they resonate with or not. But I believe personally that, you know, that's part of the soul journey of this time, is to show us more of what we're capable of and to move out of what we could consider traditional programming or traditional expectations of how we're meant to live our lives. And so as companies start to automate more and as roles change and as positions change, it's going to be the end of the 9 to 5. And so for some people, you know, maybe you've already done that, right? Or you've already been aware of the fact that, okay, I'm done with my 9 to 5. I'm moving on to something else. I have a new role. But a lot of people aren't ready for that. Like, it's going to shock the system. It's going to be something very, you know, life-changing, as it is. But we're moving away from the 9 to 5. This is one of the biggest changes since the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so that's what we're living in. You know, the Industrial Revolution was huge for everything that it revolutionized. And now we're in a new revolution. It's in a new understanding of what we're capable of what we can experience and create. And it's going to break the molds and take us out of what we thought our lives would be. And again, this is going to be a lot for someone, many people, I should say. It's going to be a lot for many people, but I'm just thinking of like the archetype of, you know, you go to college, you get your degree to get your job, to have that steady, reliable role, income, lifestyle. That's ending. And people are going to need support with their pivot, with their next steps, with what they can learn or explore, how to use their resources and their education and their experience. I think a lot of people are going to go into business for themselves and also start smaller companies. But they won't be able, it's almost like starting a smaller company, but with a different purpose than maybe what they thought. So there's going to be big stuff happening. Big stuff happening. The other part of this is that I think there's going to be another bubble that's created around more human connection, human interaction, what it means to be in connection and contact with each other. I think it's going to be a new value placed on what it means to interact with people. That is going to mean something new. It's going to mean something in a whole new level. Because I'm seeing it as these places where maybe it's healing centers, yoga centers. I know we already have that. But I've been feeling like there's more here that people are going to seek and that people are going to want to experience in community, in connections. And so there's going to be a bubble and a development that forms there in how humans can work together, heal, and support each other in a whole new way. Like I'm seeing it at a whole new level. More mainstream, if you will. And so that tide is turning already. Like that's already happening here. It's just going to be, for some people, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But again, if you go back to, a deeper soul understanding, like this is for some beautiful developments and to maybe feel more peaceful or to have a sense of greater purpose and to not feel like you're trapped in a office cubicle or surrounded only by computers. Like there's an opportunity here to move into more of our creative self, to be more in touch with each other and what we're capable of. Like it opens up all these new options that I think people are going to move towards as well. Because I'm seeing that as a positive thing. But of course, there's different layers of it, right? Collective ego death. It's programming. Like when you were growing up, didn't you have like the grand plan of your life? And when maybe you would go to a school or you'd go to the military or you'd do something that would develop your training, and then whatever, you'd go travel the world, or you'd go get married and have kids or whatever. Like we have this programming around the timeline of our lives. It's pretty standard until your first astrology reading. And when you have your first astrology reading, it busts it all open. It breaks it all apart, because your astrology chart and the transits of your chart are your actual timeline. Is the way that you are energetically designed to move through this lifetime. And so that's why, we can have a hard time being sovereign or striking out on our own, because we're all in this programming and we grow up with it. And I'm going to speak in general terms here in the States, that you grow up with the kids of the same age in the same class, and you all go through the same milestones together until, let's say, 18, and you graduate from high school, and then you go on to your next chapter. And that's when you then step more fully onto your sovereign path. Your astrology chart and the transits of that actually reveal more about your path and how your life is going to unfold. And so that's why some people get married at 21, or some people get married at 29, or some people get married at 49 or 50, or why some people have kids or don't have kids, right? It's like I've seen thousands of charts. And every time I see a chart, there's a deep honoring of this soul's unique journey in this lifetime that can be wildly different than their peers or siblings, or what they even expected of themselves. And so that's part of what is busting out here, is that we're busting out of that traditional programming, and people are actually being released or freed to move on to more of their own sovereign path and to step into that level of individual empowerment if they choose, if they want. But that's something that is being offered. I remember 10 years ago, at least, I can't remember if it's 2014 or 2015. I was in contact with this guy who wanted an astrology reading, but he was a software engineer at Apple. So he didn't know what it meant. He didn't know like what an astrology reading was, but he was super curious. And I said, yeah, I'll do a reading for you. And so he had availability like while he was at the office. And we got on the call. He had me on speakerphone in like a conference room, and he was making jokes. And I realized he wasn't going to take this seriously. And I'm like, I'm happy to give you this information for this reading if you want, but I'm not going to waste my time, and I'm not going to be disrespected. So if you don't really want this reading, I'm going to go. And he said something else, and I was like, okay, but what you should know is that this is your pattern. You run away from things. You consistently run away. You don't deal with things head on. You don't step up to the plate. And this is the problem that's coming up for you right now. And he was like, what'd you say? He got me off conference call real fast so that he wouldn't be embarrassed in front of whoever else was in the room. And I'm like, yeah, you do this all the time. This is your pattern. And what's coming up for you to face is how to end this pattern. Because what you're seeing is that you're not fulfilled because you're running away from either what you want or you're not facing a fear head on. So then we went off on this whole tangent. He took it seriously. He was able to understand what was going on in his career and what he wasn't facing in his life. He was actually he was depressed because he had just been divorced and he was 26. And he thought, I've ruined my life. My life is over. Nothing good's gonna happen. And it's interesting because something I have observed is that there's this like window of time for some people after they're 25, but before their Saturn return, where like this stress comes in. And it's a sense of, what am I doing with my life? I'm not living up to my expectations. I'm not where I thought I would be. There's a lot of energy that's like bubbling up that can be wild and reckless and also really stressed out. And so we went through his chart and the fact that like his first marriage was important for what he needed to learn, but also to understand in hindsight, what he needs to improve or maybe what he could handle better next time. And that, I could see in his chart, like, but you haven't even met your next wife yet. Like, she isn't even here yet. She'll be here in a few years. You're going to have kids with her. And he was like, I don't want to be a dad. I can't imagine that. But I was planting these seeds of what was in his chart of like, well, it shows that you'd be a father here. You have strong energy in the 4th house and his moon and other things going on. And so it's meant to bring you comfort that like you haven't met your long-term partner yet, and don't beat yourself up over this marriage that was like your training wheels and helping you understand, how you handle connections or what you run away from and all that. We ended up talking for over an hour, and we got to some bigger things for him around like how he grew up, the fact that his dad left when he was younger, and now that was huge, and that is huge. And so the thing that came through for him about that was that, he had a soul contract with his dad that his dad would leave because his dad was actually not going to be the masculine role model that he needed. And so he needed to have that experience of absence of one role model so that he could fully form into the true masculine that he was here to be. And so it was a soul contract of removal, you could say, of like, no, you didn't have that version of a father, which actually was the catalyst that propelled you into stepping into this role as a masculine. And so that was a lot. But the point of it was like, even though, you can have a lot of like grief and sadness and what if, and of course you need to honor that and process that and be in that, you have to be in the feelings of it. You might think that if you ran into your father at some point that you would punch him in the face because you've had all this anger. But actually, as you're healing through this and you're accepting the good things that have developed for you, you wouldn't be mad at him. You would actually shake his hand. And you would understand the bigger picture of it all. That's the healing, right? Like that's the sense of, okay, this is why I had this experience or this role. So this guy, again, he's an Apple engineer, had no understanding of astrology. He ended up writing this really long letter about how grateful he was to get this guidance and information from an unexpected place, and that it was the jolt he needed to see his life differently, and that it opened him up to things in himself he'd been avoiding or hadn't been ready, because you have to be ready, right? You have to be ready for some things, ready to look at it, ready to handle it. And he now, and a few years later, he met his girl. They have 2 kids. He's an amazing father, because I see his updates and stuff on Facebook. And I just think of like, this is why astrology is so powerful. This is why, because it gives you an understanding that you're never off your path. You can only be on your path. You can only be on your path. And so wherever you're at, there's value there, there's good things there, there's developments there. I mean, but you need a perspective shift, like we all do. Like we all do. So this matters because it's these kinds of sessions that can help people recenter. And these are the kinds of understandings that I think people want, even if they don't know it, even if they don't understand astrology or any of these metaphysical sciences. But it's also what people really can receive that taps them into more of who they really are. When I'm thinking about all these job changes that are coming and things that are going to be changing, if you can have a session or get some good guidance through your astrology chart with a really good astrologer, it would save a lot of time, energy, stress, all of it. Sometimes I recommend getting 2 or 3 readings from different astrologers, because you'll resonate with people differently, and you'll understand maybe one perspective or one piece of advice better than another, right? It's kind of like you have a panel and you just choose what works, or you understand who understands you. So people are going to need support, and people are going to need an understanding that the next chapter of their life is waiting for them. And the next chapter is going to show up even amongst all these really big changes. It's like people have to know that there is a reason for the badness, and that there will be another path and another way to use their skills. And it could be all new skills, right? And the more you know your own chart, the better, because you are the expert on your own chart, always. So that is also a good investment, is to be able to understand more of your chart. And honestly, like the more you look at your chart, you see things differently every time. It just takes on a different angle. You see a different aspect. You maybe realize another theme or something comes through. So knowing your own chart is really important. And then the other thing I wanted to say here on our live, I've seen some of the comments. Yeah. Astrology saved your life. Knowing your chart, yep, knowing your chart made a huge difference. It does. It just does. And that's why it's around, because it's supporting us and it helps us know ourselves. With the summer solstice coming up on June 20th, it'll be exact 10:42 p.m. That's Eastern time. But the solstice is a pause, is the sun at its highest point in the sky, pausing in bright light, warmth, consciousness, and illuminating powerfully perhaps something new that you're ready for. New intention, new manifestation, new creation. And so the solstice would be a really powerful time to create a new agreement or intention with the universe based on what you want in this next cycle and this new season. So the energy of the solstice runs from June 20th this year until the Libra equinox, 3 months later. So that will be like September 20th or 21st. I'm not sure the exact date, but it's a 3-month season between the solstice to the equinox. And so setting your intention, I think of it as like creating an agreement with the field of existence, with what you want to bring into existence, or what you're agreeing to, whether that is a co-creation, an intention, whatever it might be. It's a powerful time to do so during the solstice. And so think of it as, you know, the sun is beaming powerful energies, infusing them, lighting them up. I feel it also strongly activates our light bodies, our capacity to hold more light, more higher frequency crystalline codes, and just the capacity to be, it's like I see it as like this clarity, because when your energy is clear, you also magnetize in and you pull things in faster because there's no density or blockages there. So I see it as this solstice lights up our energy fields, activates more of our light body, and asks you to be intentional with what you want to create, experience, pull in, all that good stuff. And so use it to your best and highest creation. and know that it's something that we can absolutely work with. I feel too like we're entering into such a season of change here between the solstice to the equinox that things are going to happen fast. So there can be rapid developments, rapid manifestations, improvements. You know, be very clear in your energy field. In fact, that could be an intention too, is allowing that powerful sun, the solar consciousness, to blast out any blockages, limitations, or density that you're ready to release and that you don't need to take forward. Yeah, it just feels like things are going to get even, start moving even faster. Start moving even faster. So use the solstice to make new agreements with the field of existence, with the universe, with whatever you intend or whatever you desire, and allow the sun's power to support you, whatever that looks like for you. You can look at where you have 0 degrees of Cancer in your chart. 0 degrees of Cancer in your chart by house placement is where you have this solstice every year. And that could help you see what areas of your life have new beginnings or have something come through because of the solstice. Oh, good. My downloads become lightning fast after Molly's courses. Well, I see it as just a redirect, right? It's redirecting you back to yourself. So if I can support that in any way, that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Happy to hear that. Oh, you're a 1 degree Cancer sun. Well, happy solar return, Julie. You have a birthday coming up. And Jupiter is conjunct your sun. And then there's going to be the Cancer new moon, June 25th at 4 degrees. So happy birthday. Happy birthday. Okay, well, I'm going to sign off now, but I just wanted to discuss some of these real world developments that are in the astrology. And again, I don't cover it on my podcast, so I talk about it here on the lives, but hope this is helpful in just anything that you're going through, you're observing, you're seeing. Oh, I do have one more thing, is that trust if you're getting those gut level messages or intuitive hits to explore something else or to look into something else, or just trust that you're being guided for a reason, even if you don't know why just yet. But to know that it's coming through because this is your soul wanting to support you, and you don't always understand why in the moment. But this is important because, again, things are moving so fast. The faster you trust it and the faster you have a willing. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Yes, happy birthday to all the Cancers as we move into Cancer season. Totally. Great. Okay, thank you guys for joining. I said I would do a live the middle of June, so I had to stick to my word. I will try to do I don't know when I'll do another one. But I think you have to have your alerts on YouTube, and then you get pinged. But the replays will be available too. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. Wishing you a beautiful solstice, beautiful start to Cancer season. And I'll have some more videos coming up on YouTube over the next few days too. So, okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.